Welcome everybody. This is a candid conversation between myself, Martina, the host of the show, and Elias Prado, the senior designer in our studio, the studio of Martina. In these conversations, we're gonna be touching on different points that have to do with working in a creative business, getting feedback, hiring, working with students, working with clients, building a team, leadership, and all of the things that running a creative business involve. We hope that these conversations will give you insights in how it is to work together and what are the challenges that have to do with running a creative business. So, Elias, hello.
Hi, it's nice to be here on the other side of the camera finally.
Exactly. Elias is actually the one that has been producing our podcast episodes, all of this, during the first season of the podcast. So he has been behind the scenes running like the technical equipment and kind of getting the video done, and he has done a great job. And I thought that it would be a good idea to bring him in onto these special episodes of the podcast in which we have these conversations. We work together almost every day. Well, every day.
Pretty much every day, yeah.
Not on weekends, but pretty much every day. And I think, and I thought it would be interesting to know what are the topics that you would like to discuss in these episodes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what are we talking about today?
Yes, actually I was thinking right before we were shooting this episode that it would be interesting to know the transition that you made from being a freelancer to actually being an employer, right? Because I know for a fact, like I know a little bit about your background before, before creating this space where we work together and so on. That you have been working like alone practically for I don't know how many years, maybe like 7-6 years you have been working alone.
I mean, you came in 2000.
I think at the end of 2019. Yes.
2018. So I've been working on my own since 2010, like specifically in lettering, or I started the studio in 2010. So it took how many years to bring you in?
9 years.
9 years to bring you in. But you were not the first person that was working in the studio. I think that you were actually the first person who came in to do the work that I was doing.
Yes.
So you were the first person that came in to have, to put his hands on the lettering work that the studio was doing. So I think that was new to me.
Yeah.
And, before that we had other team members, like we had Josefina, and we also had other interns, but you were like the first intern that really stayed after interning here. What would you like to know? I have so many things to say about transitioning from freelancing to being like a boss or a business owner.
Yeah. I mean, the things that I'm not really sure how many people you worked with. Because I know that you also have done like a lot of collaborations. Like I know for a fact as well that doing Decorata, you like this typeface that you have, like a super display typeface. You did it on collaboration with Neil from Positype.
That's true.
But you also had another person who was helping you with the design, right?
Yeah. So that's interesting because that's true. Like before, I would say that in the years prior to you coming in the studio to do creative work or to put your hands on the lettering work, I was already practicing on kind of delegating that kind of work. It wasn't easy for me. I always thought that as an artist, it was just very challenging to give up that part of the work. I always thought like, I could bring people to work with me, but they should be doing things that don't involve creative work. Like the work needs to be done by me, which I was totally wrong. Like I see that totally different now.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that I made that step of like delegating creative work to other people. But coming back to your question, like I was actually before hiring you, I was sort of practicing with collaborators or other people how to delegate that work. So I was creating collaborations to create a font, for instance. And specifically to your example, I was creating a font with Positype, with Neil Summeror, who is the owner of Positype, and we were developing a font together. So I created the design and he expanded the alphabet. And within that process, I brought someone in to help me expand that alphabet as well. So I had someone in-house who would help me expand the alphabet and create all the masters and everything to create that font. So that was a really I would say like that was the first experience that I had on having someone doing the work that I was doing. But at the same time, when I look back at this experience, I feel that I was so much micromanaging this person. I was like, I remember that I would just sit down letter by letter and kind of make comments on everything he would do. He was doing a good job, but you know, like I felt I couldn't detach from the work as I could right now.
Yes.
Also, the person was not trained in the way that I would have loved to train the person.
Yes.
So he was doing a lot of things like he would do them and not like I would do them, which is normal of working with a team. But but you know, at that stage of my journey, I wasn't ready to let others do my creative work in their way, if that makes sense. But that was a good experience, and it was also a good experience to realize that, hey, I mean, if there's someone that's helping me to do this work, it's like so much easier. Like I could do it twice faster as I could. Still, I was micromanaging a lot, and that really took up a lot of my time. And if I look back and the way I work right now with you, for instance, where I'm not micromanaging, hopefully as much as I used to, I mean, you know, it's a world of difference. But I mean, I had these experiences in between where I was training myself to delegate more and not micromanage the creative work so much, and also to learn that, hey, if I let go of the creative work at least a little bit, I could do a lot of other things that bring my business forward. And that was an experience that really allowed me to take off as a creative studio. Really, from that time on, the growth of the studio has been very rapid in terms of like the team members, the things we do, the projects we do, the impact that we have. And and I think it was thanks to that, to realizing like, hey,
being able to delegate things like in a
totally
way.
Totally.
And there's a lot of things to unpack there. Like I feel like I could like go on with this topic for forever, because like you touched on like keeping sort of like the identity of your work as a not only as an artist but also as an author, right? Like you're recognized because of the work that you do and the way you do it, and delegating something as personal as that, as the work that you do, like that classifies you as an artist or as an author. I guess it's quite challenging, right? Like, do you think like then, for what you said about this like specific project with the Decorata, that you can like still keep the same sort of identity of the project or of the art, and that being compatible with somebody else, like putting his or her own input in that project? Like,
I think so. I think that, I mean, just to give it a little bit of context, the Decorata is a font that we created in the studio, and that's the name of the font, and that's I would say like the first big collaborative project that we did, and that it was the project where I introduced someone to work and to expand the alphabet with me. And it was also a project where I didn't put my hands on so much, and that felt so amazing. Like really, that felt, I have, for the first 6 years of my career, I have handled a lot of projects on my own, also like the struggles and the moments where you feel like, how the hell do I do this, and that was the first project where I could really have a dialogue with someone or lean on someone to solve certain issues. Now, coming back to your question on how do you let the other person, when you're delegating work, how do you let the other person put something of themselves into the work and still feel that is mine? I personally think that I did, or the biggest work that I've done as a leader, or as a mean to grow the studio, is to actually sit down and think, like, how do I want to do things?
Yes.
And or what makes the way I do things special, and how would I like things to be done? And once I kind of decided on that, how can I teach other people to work in a similar way, to align with me?
Yeah.
And I feel that, for instance, in your case, I think I really work consciously on mentoring you and shaping the way you look at things as well. And although you have a specific way of doing stuff, and when you do personal work, I can see a lot of like Elias in that.
Yes.
I feel that when we work together, you know exactly what language we're speaking.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, even when you can have your personal style in the work you do and stuff, when you work for the studio, you know exactly what we're about. You know exactly what fits with the studio, what doesn't fit with the studio. And there's no second thought on that, you know. And I think that was the biggest work that I feel I had to do on kind of educating my team and showing them how I feel that the things should be done, how I feel that we could have a better impact, and like let them work with that.
Yes.
Because I think that I feel that often, or in the past, as I had other bosses myself, I have had bosses in the past, and I think what I regret the most, or what I didn't like from those leaders, are that they wanted me to just execute tasks. And if they would have briefed me and shown me a way to do it, I could have had a lot of autonomy. And I think that if anything I want nowadays that is positive for me and also for you all as a team, is that you have autonomy to just decide on the way you do things within the way we do things in the studio.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That it still speaks the language of the studio, it still, shares the values of the studio and aligns with the things we do here. And I hope I'm answering your question, but
yeah, absolutely. And I also it makes me think of just to put some background on this. I actually started in the studio, like we said, in 2019, and I actually didn't have. Of course, I was working for some years as a graphic designer, but I didn't have much experience on lettering or drawing letter shapes in vectors, especially. And actually, I have to say that maybe this contributed a little bit to the fact that we aligned with each other pretty well in the work that we work and the way that we work with lettering. Because practically I learned here everything that I do about letters and so on. I have learned it here in the studio, so it was kind of learning from scratch. I think that also played a positive impact on the way that we work together in either client commissions or the personal projects of the studio. Because the way that you mentored me through these last 3 years, there was no other input from any other studio or experience that I had before regarding to lettering, of course. So I think that maybe contributed in a positive way in the way that we aligned with each other with the work.
Yeah, and I know that's not everyone's. I can understand totally what you say. we were in the sense of like lettering, when it comes to lettering and like letter design, you were like a blank canvas, you know, and you were not a blank canvas at the same time, you know. You had technical knowledge and you knew how to use a lot of the programs we use in the studio, which was of course like a plus. But you were a white canvas in terms of like, hey, I'm willing to learn this, and I'm, you know, and I know that there's different approaches to building a team. There's people who think like, okay, you just hire the best people and people who are not the best people, but you hire experts and you hire people that is trained and you bring them in your team. Whereas perhaps my approach is more like you hire people that are willing to be trained and are willing to learn the way you do things. And this is my approach. And I think that for everyone who came in the studio so far or has been working in the studio with me, I feel that I do a little bit of bossing around and also like mentoring. I feel that a lot of my work is about like showing them what their great spots are, what you know, what is like where they shine and they have a talent for, but also kind of shaping a certain way of looking at things, you know. And I think that's my approach to building a team. And I feel that, you know, if I look at how the team works right now, it's like I love it in terms of how not only how we work, but also how we communicate with each other. For me, this is super important, that we can also, you know, that we can be kind to each other and that it feels a little bit like a family and we still do amazing work and our students also love us and our clients love, like, I don't know, I think that, there's a little bit of culture, you know, like, and I think my way of building that culture is to kind of train someone, whereas there's other approaches that have to do like I hire just the best people, the people who knows already about the topic.
I guess it's also like a smoother transition all in all, like it's like a little bit slower at the beginning, but it goes like progressively like getting better and better, or more like aligned with the vision of you and the studio, let's say. I mean, it makes me think of the first like months that I was working in the studio, like that I will still learn like where to place the weights on the letters, whatever, you know. And nowadays, when we receive a client commission, we already know exactly what to do, what the first steps are, right? Like coming up with sketches and compositions, and then we pick on one and keep on working on that, and then like polishing. It's like through these years we have like polished that workflow process so much. And of course, it was not like this in the beginning, but it's like much more like a progressive sort of improvement. And and I think it also has to do with what you were saying, like that this is a result of the way that you prefer to hire people, like to train them over time and maybe reach like sacrificing this like slow start to get at the end of the journey sort of like a super aligned visions on how to do things. Instead of like hiring somebody who's like already trained, as you said, and kind of like struggle to get that knowledge or that experience to align with yours, right? Like it's definitely two different processes.
I mean, I think that going back to what you said before about like the workflow and the systems, I think that, you know, that's the key, that we have these systems, and because we have those systems, we can work independently and still trust that we would do it the way it's right for us, you know, like, so there's like, there's like a clear, I feel that there's like a clear briefing for everyone that works in the studio, that it's like we do things in a certain way that aligns with these values, that follows these systems. And I think that if something that I feel is my perhaps the biggest work I have done so far is that, to create those systems that makes us very free and autonomous, you know, and it's an ongoing process. Like I
Always,
create systems every single day. Every single day I sit down to work, and it's like,
true,
okay, there's another system here that I haven't documented, and I need to document this system. So next time we do it, everyone knows how to do it, you know, like
exactly. Yeah.
I think that more and more I'm getting less, how to say, like I'm getting less patient on answering questions. It's like, whenever I need to answer a question, is like, okay, if I need to answer a question, it's because there's no clear briefing, so I need to make a clear briefing or a clear system about this. And yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing work.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is interesting. I mean, I never thought of how that process has been, and I'm super happy that it has developed that way. Anyways, like I know that there's different ways of building a team and passing, you know, going back to the initial question, like passing from being a freelancer to working with other people, that has to do with letting go, but also has to do with building the systems. So let's move to the takeaways. So we want to give you some takeaways of our conversation, so you don't leave these conversations with just the idea that you were in a chaotic conversation about a topic, but that you have some takeaways from that. So I think that something key, my first takeaway from this is that something key of making the transition between working on your own or by yourself and building a team has to do with, first, of course, letting go, which is easier said than done, but letting go and making those first tests and kind of trials, and see how letting go also enables you to do other things. I think it's very interesting to realize that, if I let go of this, I can do all these other things.
And in relation to that, you touched something before, like it was like, I think it's also key that we kind of like overpassed. It was like spotting the strong spots, the strengths on the people that you hire, right? Like, because the things that you will let go, like hopefully will be the things that these people can do best, right? Like you let go on the right things. And that combined also with the systems that you were talking about, right? Like establishing a system to let the other person like be free and have their own input in the way that they do things, but that is still in the frame of how the studio do things, right? I think like if I had to put a takeaway to this, it would be also like systems and spotting the strengths on the people that you hire.
I mean, I think spotting the strengths is important in terms of like, you will want, or I personally want people around me that are empowered and that are not feeling that they need to do everything I say, but that are really empowered to, and they have confidence in what they do. And I think that, as a mother, I do the same actually. I tell my children like, hey, I love this drawing you did, and I love how you use colors there and stuff. And I think that the same way you have to be with people who work in your team, and this way you will kind of raise more empowered individuals, which is, I think, what you want as a business owner and as a leader or boss or whatever you want to call it. But yes, I think confidence is key. So. Takeaway number one. So, as you move from being a freelancer to being a business owner or like building a team, you have to let go. But as you let go, create systems. So create systems around how you like to do things and how the things should be done and what is the right way of doing things in your business. So systems is Very important. Key takeaway number 2 is...
I mean, I was already thinking about systems as the number 2, right? But I guess it's also like complementary to the first one.
Or empower, or like highlight the best. Highlight the best strengths from your team.
Yes.
And what other thing? I guess the other thing is that to realize that by letting go, you move forward. By letting go, letting go can be really positive for you and your business. Which I think is like the biggest takeaway that I have had in the past years, which is like, hey, we can still do amazing work and we can grow as a business and as a team, and we can impact a lot more people. Like if we were not, if it was just me doing the work, like all of the work that we have to do right now, it would just not be doable. Possible, we would not be able to have like the impact that we have in terms of client work, but also in terms of the amount of students we educate, the people we coach.
Yes.
So I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you have comments or questions about this topic, you can send us an email to podcast@martinaflor.com. Of course, you can watch and listen to all of this podcast. You can watch this podcasts on YouTube. You just go to martinaflor.com/YouTube to find them. You can listen to all of these podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. So this is it for today. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe to it. And if you leave us a review, we will love you forever. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you, Elias.
Thank you.